Welcome to this week's podcast episode. This is probably one of my favorite ones because it takes me back. You guys know my story and what I've been doing in real estate, but this is where it all comes from. This episode right here, actually the man right here with me, my friend and previous boss. You've probably heard me say this before, David Lindahl. Dave, thanks so much for being on our podcast today.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure, Nathan.
So guys,
that's right. I remember, you haven't stopped by with those Portuguese English muffins in a long time. We're very, we're disappointed over here. We're waiting.
I know it's been so long, and Dave, I always tell my audience, and everyone is enthusiastic about being in multifamily. But when I tell them my story of how I got started in real estate and single family, I always tell them, they always like, well, what was that conversion point? When did you change? When did you switch? And I said, well, it was this guy, David Lindahl, came to my REIT group, and I ended up working for him. And that was the switch. So today's episode is like really unique and special to me because it's what changed my trajectory in real estate investing from small-minded to larger deals. So, but Dave, I would want you to kind of share your background story because I know it off the back of my hand when I used to be on the phone all the time.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to share your story, how you got started in multifamily real estate.
I will. I just want to say something though. Back in those days when you were here downstairs working the floor and we were in all those meetings and we would have meetings about different things we could do and we'd all come up with different ideas and brainstorm. And Nathan was always a bright light in the room. He always had this big smile on his face. He had all these great ideas, and I could tell that his time with me would be for a period of time, and that would be it. Yeah. And which is fine with me because I'm always happy to launch people off. I've never been one to say, oh no, you got to stay here and this is where you want to be. But your trajectory was seen early on, Nathan.
Thanks. Yeah, and, it was.
Your light shines bright and will continue to do so.
Thanks. I appreciate that. It was not only a fun time, but it was very educational. That period it was great. So,
it still is fun over here, even though it's like the opposite, definitely because of COVID.
Yeah, I know. How are you guys handling that? Like, is everybody remotely working right now?
Jeannie had it. Jeannie, if you is a key person over here, she's 70 years old. She got it, but she recovered. She didn't get ventilated, which was good, but she had it rough.
Yeah.
And just about to start a live event, and the AV guy came down with it today, so he's not in. So we're hustling around to get an AV, but. We had, half the staff is working from home and half the staff works here. So we're dealing with it like everybody else.
Wow. Jeez.
But that, in the COVID, we talk about multifamily, we talk about opportunity.
Yeah. I'll
talk about my story in a minute, but there is just a big, huge opportunity coming because of the COVID, because of what's going on. The COVID crisis, we haven't seen a crisis like this since the 2008 financial crisis.
True.
People that came through our system back then, and we identified that opportunity, and then more importantly, identified the recipe, because everybody learns the foundational information about how to invest in multifamily, but each opportunity, or with each opportunity, you look at that foundational information and skills, and you pick out the recipe and how to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So those people back then, like Mike Flaherty and Sue Burke Nelson, these names, Maureen Miles, they killed it. Yeah. They absolutely killed it.
Right.
And that is coming up right now. It's already started.
Well, that's a great point you bring up when you're talking about like crushing it in the market. A lot of people are a little concerned right now, because of lockdowns or just the market. They're seeing like a booming single family market. The sales keep happening and there's closings still going on. But some people are wondering, like, what about multifamily during this time? So, let's.
Oh, I'll tell you. This is the calm before the storm for multifamily. We've been in the late innings of a market cycle, a national market cycle, and even in the market cycles go from the primary markets to the secondary markets to the tertiary markets, and then they all kind of filter out, and then the market resets itself again.
Yeah.
So that was already starting back last February. There was a correction happening. Okay. So the way, there's never being an emerging markets guy, I look for markets to go into, stake a flag, buy 3 to 5 deals there, maybe more, and then look for another market and do the same thing. And as you know, Nathan, we get the most amount of appreciation in the least amount of time in these emerging markets. Exactly. And that's what really creates our wealth.
Yeah.
So in the last couple of years, really the tertiary markets have been the only ones that have been emerging, and there's not enough inventory in those markets to really, get a foothold in the market. So we've been doing one-off deals.
Yeah.
Now,
well, can you explain a little bit more about that? Because literally, I was just on the phone yesterday with one of my clients, and they were like saying, "Hey, there's not enough deals out there. I'm getting bought up faster than ever before." So, can we dive into that part a little bit? Where would people find like some good deals or unique
A deal?
opportunities?
Well, that's why I said the calm before the storm.
Yeah.
So this is the time if you're in multifamily is to really hone your skills, start making your contact with your brokers. Right now there's a lot of good direct marketing that's working in multifamily, and the reason being this is the opportunity right now in COVID. And let me give my quick background story.
Yeah.
And I'll get it really fast.
Sure.
I was in a rock and roll band at age 16. I left that band at 24 with about 10% of my brain cells. I got the Carlton Sheets course on how to be rich in real estate.
Yeah.
I put it aside. I started a landscaping company. It was new and improved 6 months later. I got the new and improved edition. I opened that up, went to my real estate investment group because it told me to. And when I saw people that were just like me doing it, and some started broke and other people started, were doing really well, that were started broke. Yeah. That's when I realized that I could do it too. I mean, if I thought these people can do it, then I can do it. Right. Saw an interview with a guy by the name of Harry Helmsley from New York City. He started with nothing, ended up owning the Empire State Building because he started investing in multifamilies. Mm-hmm. And he said that the tenants will pay for the property. They'll pay your mortgage. They'll pay for the maintenance on the property. They'll pay for a management company to handle all the tenants, and you get a profit at the end of every month. And you can get in with no money down.
Exactly.
And I thought, damn, if all that's true, I'm in.
Sign me up.
And over 8,000 units later, it turned out to be true.
Yep.
So that's the fastest backstory I've ever told.
Yeah.
Because I want to get to this opportunity in the coronavirus.
Absolutely.
This is where it's really exciting.
Exactly. And this keeps coming up over and over again. I think a lot of people are a little bit hesitant about diving into the market and saying, is now the right time? Should I wait or should I jump in? And you're saying
you can wait. Mm-hmm. You can wait, but I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
Because you waited, the good deals are going to be picked up by myself and my students.
Yeah.
And you'll still get good deals later on, but you won't get as many good deals because the time to get them, the time to establish your foundation is now to get started. And there are deals out there. I mean, Nathan, we still have our weekly meetings. Yeah. We still talk about our student success. All right, how many, which students did our deals, and that number has not gone down. Every week, there's a number of students that have done deals that particular week.
That's great.
So at the beginning of COVID, it took a couple of months for things to shake out. People were really nervous. But then the opportunity started to happen. So the opportunity with COVID is this. Mm-hmm. People started losing their jobs, high unemployment. In the areas of the country or the properties that had this high unemployment, the owners that didn't handle it properly, even, my own properties, I've owned a couple in C's, which normally, when the market starts to go out, you sell your C's and get into B's. So I still had a couple of C's, and those will always be your most difficult properties in difficult times because they are the lowest economic socio of any of your tenants. Right. So those are the people when COVID hit, they started losing their jobs. But the management companies that didn't learn how to manage effectively or even asset manage effectively, those are the ones that lost the most tenants. Well, they didn't actually lose the tenants. Those are the ones that had the most tenants not paying their rents.
Right.
When they stopped paying their rents, the managers or the owners realized that, the rents are coming in. I got to stop doing the maintenance on the properties because I don't have the money. I got to make sure I get the mortgage paid. When they stop doing the maintenance, that's the number one reason that people leave your property is lack of attention to maintenance. It's not the rents, it's the lack of attention to maintenance. So when that happens, your good tenants immediately start leaving. When they start leaving, it's hard to replace them with similar quality tenants. Because as the new ones come in to take a look at the property, they're going to see that there's some deferred maintenance going on. Yep. So they're not going to live in a place like that.
Long. Yeah.
So the quality of the tenant base starts going down.
Right.
And then eventually what will happen is as the quality starts going down, those people that come in, they turn faster. Tenant turnover is our highest expense because it costs money to make those turns. So the expenses start to increase even more. They still can't keep up with the maintenance or the expenses, so they start lowering the rents to get more people in to do that. As they lower the rents, they're lowering the quality of the tenant base even more. They start to lower their standards lower just because they realize, I'm getting to a point where I can't make my mortgage payment. Right. And then they've got to make a decision. So I call this the death spiral.
Yeah.
They go into this death spiral. And then there's really no way out of it because they never really learned the skills. If they learned the skills of good asset management, then they wouldn't be in the death spiral. They would have handled that right at the very beginning. I mean, one of the things we did here is we got on the phone with all of our coaches and all of our students at over 5,000 units and more. We all talked about, okay, this is a big crisis. What are we all going to do?
Right.
And we set out some best practices on how to handle it. And even just the other day, I got a property in St. Louis, and I've got a really aggressive manager over there, and she scoured the community, the government community, to find out what resources there were.
Right.
We got a check for $46,000 for back rent.
So let's explain that just a little bit, because I think a lot of people are wondering that, like, what if my tenants don't pay the rent? What's going to happen?
Yeah.
So you bring up a very valuable point there, that your property manager went and found a program to sustain rents.
Yes. Now we're talking about properties that were already in existence. If you're buying properties now in this particular market, one of the things you got to do is when you're doing your lease audit on the property, when you're taking it over, you got to go through that lease audit and you got to see what type of jobs they have. If they've got service jobs, that's a high risk community. If they've got industrial jobs, manufacturing jobs, that's not if they've gotten this far through COVID, they're probably going to make it. I was just reading this morning in my my news feed, CBRE, Richard Ellis, the big company there. They just put out a thing on how multifamily properties are the strongest asset class right now of all commercial properties. And the majority of the owners are seeing 90 to 95% rents collected.
I'm even hearing from bigger firms, private equity firms and whatnot, they're changing their strategy into multifamily because office space right now is just not in existence. I think we're going to see, I think also you dabbled in some office space back in the day, right? If I recall correctly.
I still own the office space.
Yeah. I mean, that sector right there just took probably one of the biggest hits,
Huge. I'll tell you, the reason I was safe there is because we started buying single story office. And single story office is you have your own entry and exits.
Right.
And therefore, the people don't have to go through a common area. And that's those are the ones that are surviving now.
Yeah.
And there's no elevators.
Right. Yeah, that's really helpful. I think of that and this concept of co-work, private office space. It's actually what I use in the different countries that I live in. I use that private office solo, key entry anytime. But that whole dynamic is going to change. And I think that's why a lot of people are finding, apartments being more of a secure investment in the long term.
Listen, office companies will go out of business, but people always need a roof over their head.
It's so true. It's very true.
And so like I said, if you're going into buying now, there's a lot more things you can do to protect yourself, like a good lease audit, like in your purchase and sale agreement, you base the price off of a capitalization rate based on actual income coming in on the last month of the deal. Then you do the price. So there's 2 or 3 different things that you can do to protect yourself going into a deal.
Right.
And then, so going back to those marginal owners. So there are more marginal owners right now that are on the brink of losing their properties than we've ever seen. CoStar just put out a report that 14% of all commercial deals are going to be going upside down within the next 2 or 3 months. Within a 2 or 3 month window over the next 6 to 8 month period. So when the snowball starts to happen, it's going to happen fast. There's going to be this window of opportunity that opens. And then it's going to be closed. And that's the same thing that happened during the 2008 financial crisis. Yeah. So we're going to see a lot of properties come onto the marketplace. They projected that those properties would resell at 60% of their loan value, not their purchase price, but their loan value. Right. From the previous.
Because we're even seeing even on the retail side. The retail sector is suffering dramatically. Do you have any take on that? I know it not related to apartments, but what's your take on the retail space?
It's the same thing. We just sold the retail deal and we did really well. So we weathered the storm through COVID. Yeah. And then we were able to keep the revenues in and we made a pretty good profit on it. Nice. So the whole idea behind retail again is your tenant base. So who's in there? Right. What do they do? What potential does COVID have to affect them, or how has it affected them? So true. I think, we just walked away from a deal. It was a single story office deal in Charlotte that we really liked, but then we realized that their rent roll wasn't as accurate as they said it was, and there was a lot of tenants that were behind because of COVID. So we walked away from that deal.
Yeah, Dave, one of the biggest questions we hear all the time is, not only where do I start, but literally what location, like where, which state, what market do I get into? So what would be your, first tip of advice there to say, okay, this is what you look for in selecting a market?
Your own backyard. It's the easiest and fastest place to get started. As you know, I'm an emerging markets guy, so I like to buy all around the United States. But when I'm training people, I let them know that, and it's just like myself, I started my own backyard. You can meet your brokers face to face. You can meet your management companies and interview them. You can go and touch and feel the properties after you've analyzed them. So you get a lot of, I call it building the real estate gut. You really get to build your real estate gut in your own backyard. And then some people at the same time, they'll start in emerging markets too, and they'll take what they're learning in their own backyard and they'll apply it over the phone in those emerging markets.
True.
So the best place is always in your own backyard. There's always deals there. You can pick them up with direct mail campaigns. You can pick them up through local brokers. Doesn't matter, as long as you understand the 4 phases of the market cycle, and you're using the right buying and selling strategy in that particular phase, you can do business.
Yeah. And out of those 4 phases of the cycle, what phase are we in right now?
Well, it all depends on the market, but the majority of the market right now is resetting. So they're in the buyer's market 1, which is good. Coming out of the buyer's market 1, or this COVID crisis, the reset was happening because the correction was taking place, and then COVID just brought a lot more
magnitude to that situation.
Into the reset, which is nice because there's so many different opportunities out there to choose from. But there's markets like Dallas is a really good market to be looking at right now. Actually, we just did. I'm partners. Scott Stafford. Do you know Scott?
No, I don't.
He created a product called REI Indicator. He came through our system. He was in a mastermind. So he came to me, he sat in this office right here, right across the desk, and he said, I've worked with all these different demographics companies, and I can take what in emerging markets, I can put in an algorithm, and then I can spit out what markets are good. And I was like, please do that, because it takes me hours.
No kidding.
And he did. And then I said, why don't you just create a product and make it available to other people as well? And he did. It's called REI Indicator. He has it. Like I would go into emerging markets and then I would learn about, the different sub-markets inside that market. And then, then I go into A, B, C, D neighborhoods in that particular area and decide. His algorithms spit out the markets. They spit out the sub-markets and it spit out the neighborhoods.
Wow.
So it's really good.
Good.
I can give you, I was talking to him the other day about the markets, and we talked about Dallas, which is a good market that's going to be coming out strong. Las Vegas, Orlando, because they're so touristy centric. The tourists aren't there, so they're really hurting. So there's going to be some good deals. The tourists are going to flood back in. As soon as COVID goes away, everything's going to go back.
Exactly.
People think, oh no, we'll never live the same way again, right? Well, you look at it, Nathan, you think about the real estate market cycle and all the overbuilding that always happens, right? And the bank always finance it, and then the market crashes. So true. And it happens all the time. They give those, those no income verification loans. And you see it in every cycle, and nobody ever learned from their mistakes.
Yeah, it's so true. It's almost like it's destined to happen, though. It's like part of the plan, right? And there's that's where opportunity is, though. That's where opportunity is. If you know how to identify the opportunity, you just got to move in and soak it up. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, absolutely. At the time, Warren Buffett said it best: the time to be greedy is when there's fear in the air. And that's what you got to do. You've got to recognize those particular opportunities, and when you do, you can really profit.
Absolutely.
That's what's happening now.
I know there's a lot of new people that are going to see this podcast and maybe have never, been introduced to you or who you are. But if they were to get like a sneak peek or a peek behind the curtain of maybe some of your businesses or your trainings that you do with your clients, what would be something you would tell someone who is like new, who doesn't know you yet, and how you could help them get started?
They can go to davetoday.com. davetoday.com. There's a free book there that you can download, and there's a digital training there as well. And you can get an idea of what it takes to invest in multifamily properties.
I'll definitely put that link in the description so people can get over there and do that. And going back to what you said earlier about the current situation and where things are going, where do you see this like change happening? Is it after, is it 3 months from now, 6 from now? We kind of get a lot of those questions where people are always asking, is it after people get vaccinated, or is it a year from now or less than a year from now? People are really wondering that.
It's happening now, but the opportunity is happening right now because the properties have started to shake out from weak hands, as we call it. So COVID's been with us for almost a year now.
Yeah.
And, I have my own podcast, Multifamily Deal Lab. And I just had one of our students, Rick Raja, on,
Okay.
and they've done 3 deals during COVID. And they've
Wow.
got 8, in their game plan for this year, they've got 8 deals slated,
Yeah.
that's what they want to do. So they're aggressively out there looking and finding deals that work. And the deals do work, but as you know, it's all about the relationships.
Yeah.
The deals come in through the relationships with the brokers.
That's the biggest thing. I literally just had, a meeting, and even myself, I ended up buying 25 units during COVID. Like literally we signed the documents. A week later we had lockdown. Like no joke.
Wow.
You can't predict these things, and because of COVID, things have been really slow. But, like you said, it's about building those relationships. That's really important along the way. And I think I like what you said right from the beginning is that during this time, it's a great time to be building your network. What are some of those maybe key people that should be in the network as people are starting and building their real estate business?
All right. But first, let me, the other opportunity other than the brokers and the relationships is direct mail, because we have not seen an opportunity in direct mail. The responses, the response rates, typically, you look for a 1% response rate with direct mail.
Right.
But because of the fact there are so many marginal owners out there that are having difficulties with their properties, we're seeing a much higher response rate because they want to try to sell the property before the bank takes it back if they can without paying a commission. So there's an opportunity there.
Okay.
In terms of team building, whether it's in your own backyard or in an emerging market, your property manager is the key person on the team. Good quality property managers that do what you say, that ask you for decisions, that are just good at collecting the rent. There's the 3 keys to property management. It's the collections, it's the lease up, and then it's the retention. And you get a good company that can do that for you, and then you can go off and you should be reading 1 report a week, the Monday morning report, and then 1 report a month, the profit and loss statements and the variance report.
Okay.
And then they allow you to go out and buy more deals. That's the whole idea. If you get stuck in the quagmire of managing those properties, you're not a true investor, and you won't get to scale your business.
You mentioned
That's the first one.
Yeah. Sorry.
And inside the market, a good attorneys, of course, good insurance people that can go nationally if you're going to go national. But usually I started with a local guy, and then I ended up with a guy from Texarkana. I'm from Boston, from Texarkana.
Yeah.
So definitely a good lending broker, so you don't have to run out there and try to figure out who's got the best rates and the best deals. Let the lending broker go out, and he's going to get paid at the closing. That's fine, but it's well worth it, and because that market's changing on a regular basis too.
True.
Those are the key people on your team. And then when you do own a property, then it's the local contractors and the property inspectors.
Yeah. Yeah. Finding always property management.
Let me say one more, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because life is a big mind game. You know what I mean? Sure. So there should be somebody on your team, whether it be a spouse, a significant other, a psychologist, people, a mastermind group, people that you can talk honestly with.
That's so true.
About your fears, about your accomplishments, but just about anything that you can talk, just open up with. That will get you there faster, because every day our mind defaults everything to the negative. And if you can, be going to these resources, reading good books like Unbeatable Mind, Super Brain, things like that, and always focus on your mindset. If you do that at the start of every day, then you'll be successful a lot faster.
That's a great point you bring up. It's something actually that we always talk about in our group. Is we talk about having that support, having those people around you that because every day you're going to have like little moments, thoughts of doubt, and is this possible? And hey, when you get an offer, even when you make an offer and it gets rejected, that's another layer of doubt. And it's that mind game. I completely agree that it's needed. So if you don't have that support, what kind of support do you lay out for your client, your students, that they can help them grow and to build their business faster?
Yeah, we've got. Do you remember Ron Jung?
Yeah.
One of our coaches, yeah. So Ron created a mindset. At our ultimate partnering events on the third day, Ron would always do the "I'm a real estate warrior" chant.
Oh, nice.
So he did a whole series of mindset videos cool. That we give to our students.
That's
and great. They go through step by step. The first one is overcoming fear. Yeah. Because you never really overcome fear. It's just harnessing the anxiety that fear brings, which allows you to move forward.
Exactly.
And as long as you can do that, you can move forward. A lot of people, unfortunately, get paralyzed by fear.
True. I remember you had, I forgot the title of it, but didn't you also, you had like a whole binder it was all about mindset. This is going back, 10 years ago? Like mindset principles or something like that. It was really good.
Yeah. Principles of Success.
Principles of Success. That's what it was.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I did a lot of interviews with a lot of successful people, and I figured out that they actually they all followed a similar formula, and they didn't realize it until I put all these interviews together and I realized it. Like, wow. So I created this binder and 4 audios called Principles of Success, how ordinary people become extraordinarily wealthy.
Yeah.
Or successful, extraordinarily successful. Yeah. I've been a big mindset guy ever since I was in my late 20s, coming out of that rock and roll band, doing all that crazy stuff. I was really negative. And we had a clean out business, cleaning out properties for banks. And we were seeing all this stuff, books like Anthony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within, The Magic of Thinking Big. And when I started reading Earl Nightingale's Lead the Field, when I started reading and listening to these things, and I realized my life was changing for the better, I started telling my guys to look for this stuff, when they're cleaning out houses. Hey, have you seen any good books, tapes, or anything? Give them to me. I had a 1-bedroom apartment with a huge library of all this motivational stuff.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it was awesome. I still have most of it.
Really?
A lot of it back then was in cassettes and all that, because that was a long time ago. But I've updated it, and I continue to do it. I mean, there's Navy SEALs trainings. That's a training I'm going through right now. Yeah. So it's the mindset is something that you need to focus on a regular basis, because if you don't, you get stuck in a fog. You plateau, you don't move forward, you can't figure out why.
That's very true.
Mindset.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think along that journey to propel someone, I call it the time collapse. Having a coach in your business along with you is probably one of the best things, because instead of, it just helps collapse time to getting you closer to your deal. That's something that even when I was working at your company, I noticed how fast people would get into deals because they had a coach. Like, some people would struggle for a year or 2, and then when they got a coach, it just collapsed the time and they were doing deals a lot faster.
One of the biggest objections to getting a coach would be, I'm going to wait till I do my first deal and then I'll get into a coach.
True.
Well, as you know, the first deal is the most important deal. And if you don't ever get into that first deal, you never go. And after, we've seen it over and over again. We've been teaching since 2002. After students do that first deal, and like me, it took me 9 months to do my first deal. But after the first one, I had 3 more. And then within 6 months, I had 9. And within the first year, I had 11. It's all about that first deal, because you've got to put the systems in place in order to get it done. You got to put the team in place in order to get it done. And then when you get it done, you have all the confidence in the world, because it worked. That's it worked. And the second one comes so much faster, and then you're on a roll. And so, when I hear that objection, I try to, but people can't, they can't think forward because they don't have that experience. They don't have the experience like me or you, where you can see people that have moved along the process and have had difficulties and how they can overcome it.
True.
But the coach itself is just somebody that has been there already.
Right.
That says, hey, do this, don't do that, because if you do this, this is what will happen.
Yeah. That's so true. It's that guidance. Oh, good stuff. So Dave, just to conclude today's episode, you gave some valuable points about, the timing in this market and why people should be getting started now rather than waiting and not playing the wait game. What are some last moments and thoughts of, wisdom you can leave with us in our audience here?
I think, the most important thing is just to make a decision. Nothing happens without a decision. And you make a decision to do something. Tony Robbins said, your destiny is made in moments of decision. And people unfortunately think that small decisions don't matter. Small decisions matter big time. You got to be watching all the decisions that you make. But the people that are most successful in life and anything are those that decided that they were going to do it. It didn't matter what get in the way. They were going to find a way over it, under it, around it, or through it. Yeah. And those are the people that get to where they want to be.
Those are some great tips right there, for sure. And a great place to get started. I'm just here on the website right now at davetoday.com. You guys can go there and make that decision to get started by going through Dave's book and his online.
It's a free book.
It's a free book, and it's an online training. Go there, get it for free. davetoday.com. Dave, thanks so much for being on here. It's been good to see you, and it's always a pleasure. Always good to connect.